the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy Anne's decision to bestow the honorary title and Diana's tiara upon Charlotte, a courageous act to protect Diana's legacy, or was it a reckless decision that caused division within the royal family? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also click to defend herself, her voice faltering. That was a misunderstanding. I only wanted to protect the family. You are all exaggerating. But the blame-shifting plan she had prepared earlier collapsed completely. The evidence was too detailed, too clear. There were no gaps left for her to deny. Every time Camilla tried to explain, Anne presented another document or recording rendering her excuses meaningless. Charles finally spoke, his voice weary but firm. "Camilla, you have gone too far." Calm, but her trembling hands gave her away. Charles listened, his face gradually showing deep disappointment. Anne continued to present each piece of evidence logically and coldly. Photocopied documents, retrieval minutes, witness lists, and detailed testimonies from many former staff members. All of it pointed to one undeniable truth. The systematic erasure of Diana's legacy had been carried out for many years under direct orders from Camilla. This was not the action of a secretary, Anne emphasized. This was a clear chain of command, with traces leading straight to the person who gave the orders. Camilla tried space packed with royal family members and high-ranking officials. What had been announced as a small event to honor Princess Charlotte on her 11th birthday turned into a truly seismic moment. Princess Anne stepped onto the dais with her familiar cascading down her face, bearing the delicate features clearly inherited from her grandmother, Princess Diana. The entire hall fell into absolute silence as Anne spoke, her voice clear and powerful. Today, before the entire family and the royal household, name no one dares mention openly Camilla. Is Anne pursuing the truth to protect Diana's legacy, or has she unwittingly touched upon a secret that someone will do anything to keep buried? The May 2026 sunlight filtered through the enormous stained glass windows of Buckingham Palace's Grand Hall, illuminating the solemn, resolute demeanor. She wore a dark suit, her hair neatly tied in a high bun, her gaze as sharp as a blade. In her hands was an old red velvet box. Beside her stood Princess Charlotte in a pristine white dress, her golden blonde hair into Diana's past. In her luxurious but cold private room, Camilla paced restlessly. Her face was pale, her eyes flashing with anxiety mixed with rage. She clenched her fists so tightly that her nails dug into her palms. Anne, she dares touch things she shouldn't. Camilla muttered, her voice full of tension. She knew that if Anne continued digging, everything she had tried to bury for 2 decades could be exposed. Fear drove Camilla to act immediately and decisively. First, she ordered her 2 most trusted assistants to carry out a final cleanup. Within 2 days, the last became more stifling than ever. Queen Camilla could not sit still. She had received intelligence from her trusted sources. Princess Anne had not only organized the ceremony impulsively, but was secretly conducting a deep investigation of Camilla. If we do not stand up to protect her legacy now, then Charlotte and future grandchildren will only know their grandmother through edited stories. I do not want history to repeat the same mistakes. William remained silent for a long time. He felt the still raw pain within the family, but he was also concerned about the full of obstacles. But after today's ceremony, there was no turning back. The suspicions in Anne's heart grew stronger, and she was determined to uncover the truth no matter who she had to confront. Several months before the shocking ceremony at Buckingham Palace, a secret meeting completely changed Princess Anne's thinking, still wearing his suit from the ceremony. Aunt Anne, I just spoke with Father. Everyone is in an uproar. Do you really think this is reasonable? Anne turned to look at her nephew. Her eyes were resolute, but also full of emotion. William, you are Diana's son. You understand better than anyone what she endured because of potential division. Nevertheless, he did not oppose his aunt. He simply nodded lightly before leaving. Once the door closed, Anne sat down at her desk. On it were the documents she had collected. She knew the road ahead would be was suffocating from the very first minutes. Princess Anne stood up, her demeanor more resolute than ever. She looked around at everyone, her voice clear and powerful. Charlotte is not. The atmosphere in Buckingham Palace remained heavy. Charles convened an important internal royal family meeting in a private conference room attended only by core members. Not just my granddaughter. She is the hope for Diana's legacy to continue living. Today, I formally propose that the royal family recognize Charlotte's title and role as the inheritor of the compassionate spirit that her grandmother once represented. As soon as Anne finished speaking, Camilla could no longer restrain herself. She slammed her hand on the table, her voice shrill. "Anne, you're causing trouble again. This is not the time for— I declare that I am bestowing upon Princess Charlotte the Diana honorific title. She is not merely a young member of the House of Windsor. She will be the inheritor of the spirit of compassion, courage, and closeness to the people that her grandmother once represented." And here, Anne slowly opened the box, revealing a small sparkling tiara that gleamed under the spotlights. It was the tiara that had once belonged to Diana, a precious item tied to her meaningful charity tours, her warm smile, and the silent pain the public had witnessed. This tiara will belong to Charlotte as a reminder that Princess Diana's legacy lives on within us. Scattered applause. But the strongest and most unexpected reaction came from Queen Camilla. She shot up from her seat, the chair behind her creaking dryly. Her face flushed, applause broke out, mixed with astonished whispers spreading throughout the hall. Kate Middleton gripped William's hand tightly, trying to maintain a smile while her eyes revealed clear surprise. King Charles sat in the center, his expression complex, unclear whether he was moved or anxious about what was about to unfold. The new generation, a generation that would not allow history to repeat the same mistakes. The storm within the royal family temporarily subsided, but its echoes would linger for a long time. In your opinion, was Princess only a mixture of relief and sadness? She had done what needed to be done. William approached his aunt, speaking softly. "You were right, but the price is very high." Anne smiled sadly and replied, "Sometimes to heal, we must face the darkness. Diana deserves to be honored. Charlotte will continue that journey." The truth had been revealed. Diana's legacy would no longer be buried in silence. Through Charlotte, the flame that the late princess had once lit was finally passed on to Mrs. She knew Anne was contacting, received strange phone calls. The cold voice on the other end carried a clear threat. "You've retired peacefully. Don't dredge up old stories. Silence will be better for your health and your family." At the same time, Camilla prepared a sophisticated contingency plan. She quietly drafted a series of internal documents that placed all responsibility on a senior secretary who had left more than 15 years earlier, a person who had remaining records related to Diana, including some old archive minutes and personal photos, mysteriously disappeared completely from the royal archive system. No transfer traces were left behind. Everything was handled quickly, discreetly, and thoroughly. Next, Camilla moved to warning tactics. Some of the former witnesses had passed away 2 years ago and could not speak out. If the matter were exposed, Camilla would claim it was merely the personal mistake of that secretary and that she had known nothing about it. After completing all these measures, Camilla felt temporarily reassured. A good person. She did so much for this country. I cannot bear to see her legacy erased day by day. She deserves to be remembered as a symbol, not merely a tragedy. Anne held his hand tightly for a moment, her voice low but resolute, the elderly man's voice. Although Robert had no physical evidence, his account was extremely logical and detailed, matching the irregularities Anne had long suspected. She suspected Camilla was involved, and only Camilla had the motive to do all of this. When Robert finished, he looked at Anne with tired but determined eyes. Princess Diana was about what they had seen. Their careers and reputations would be destroyed. I was lucky to stay longer because I knew how to stay silent, but my conscience has tormented me for 20 years. Anne listened without interrupting. Her face gradually hardened. She could sense the genuine fear in. Thank you for daring to speak the truth. I will not let what you have told me be in vain. That meeting poured fuel on the fire of suspicion in Anne's heart. She realized this was not the impulsive act. I cannot believe this. The atmosphere in the room was now so heavy that everyone found it difficult to breathe. Camilla sat silently, no longer having the strength to argue. She knew everything would to avoid a major scandal, but internally it was different. Camilla was completely isolated. She was forced to move to live alone in the eastern wing of the palace and was barred from participating in any official royal activities for the foreseeable future. Her reputation and position within the family were severely damaged. Anne stood by the window after the meeting, looking out at the darkness enveloping the garden. She did not cheer in victory. There was over. The fear she had tried to bury for 2 decades had finally been exposed. The outcome was delivered in silence. The royal family decided not to make the matter public. 20 years earlier rang out clearly in the deathly silent room. Dispose of everything. All letters, photos, and mementos related to Diana. Leave nothing. This is an order. Camilla's face turned deathly pale. She tried to stakes to create division. I am doing it to protect the truth. She placed the entire set of documents on the table. Then she played the old recording. Camilla's voice. Anne entered the room, carrying a thick folder of documents, her eyes determined. It's time to clarify everything Anne said, her voice low but heavy with significance. I am not doing these games. The atmosphere immediately exploded. William tried to intervene, but was too late. Charles had to call for calm, but everyone could feel the storm approaching. That evening, Charles decided to hold a private confrontation with only Anne, Camilla, and a few key members. There was no room for locations, small suburban cafes, quiet parks, even in cars parked in underground lots. At first, the results were extremely disappointing. Most were willing to speak, but none fall into permanent silence. In the following days, Anne quietly continued her search for the truth. She contacted numerous former staff members who had worked directly with Diana in the 1990s. She met them and discreetly keep anything. Another butler trembled. They said if I kept quiet, I would have a peaceful retirement. I have a family, Your Royal Highness. I didn't dare take the risk. Anne listened patiently to every story. Though they were only verbal accounts, they reinforced her belief that there had been a systematic campaign. Anne dared keep physical evidence. An elderly former maid cried as she recounted. I saw them carrying boxes of documents away in the middle of the night. But I was just a maid. How could I dare do everything right? Your grandmother would certainly be proud of you right now. The atmosphere in the hall was now taut as a bowstring, ready to snap at any moment. Charles gripped the armrest of his chair until his knuckles turned white. Camilla stood there, breathing heavily, her deep-seated fear greater. She was not only giving the tiara to his daughter, but she was also sending a clear and dangerous message to the entire royal family. Diana's legacy could not be erased so easily. Charlotte clutched Princess Anne's hand tightly, her large, round eyes showing a mix of confusion and pride. The little girl whispered, Aunt Anne, did I do something wrong? Anne leaned down close to her granddaughter, her voice gentle but firm. No. You are gradually becoming visible in her eyes. The seemingly modest ceremony had officially opened a dramatic behind-the-scenes confrontation over legacy memory and invisible power within the British royal family. Outside the palace, the press began flooding the news with sensational headlines, and that she would not be easily bullied. When the meeting ended, Camilla returned to her room feeling more confident. She sat before the mirror, adjusted her hair, and smiled faintly. In her mind, she believed she had the situation under control. No matter how hard Anne tried, she would not find real evidence. Camilla understood she must remain highly vigilant. She had no idea that her counteractions would only make Anne more determined. and the evidence she thought she had erased. But deep down, Camilla still felt a vague unease. She knew Anne was not someone who gave up easily. This secret war had only just begun, and Camilla still existed in the darkest corners. Princess Anne was not intimidated by Camilla's strong countermoves. On the contrary, the Queen's aggression only strengthened her resolve. She understood that stopping now would mean everything would about to tell you could put me in danger, but I cannot take it to my grave. Anne sat up straight, her gaze focused. She nodded, her voice steady. Robert, tell me everything you know. Robert took. The man waiting for her was in his late 70s, with white hair and a slightly hunched posture from age and years of service in the palace. His name was Robert Harrington, a former butler who had served Princess Diana for more than 10 years. When Anne sat down, he looked around carefully before speaking, his voice hoarse and cautious. Your Royal Highness, I thought long and hard before daring to contact you. What I am about. It was a drizzly afternoon at a quiet small house on the outskirts of London. Anne arrived alone, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a dark coat to avoid recognition, to erase Diana's legacy. But she needed hard evidence, something that could stand up to any investigation or denial. Then the crucial moment finally arrived. On a stormy, pouring evening, Anne met Mr. Edward Langford, a former archive assistant to Diana who had retired in 2008. He was about 70 years old and lived in a modest house in Surrey. When Anne entered, he looked at her with tired but determined eyes. I have waited for this day for 20 years, he said quietly. I knew that one day the truth had to come out. Edward led Anne into a small room in the basement. He opened an old safe and took out a thick bundle of documents, carefully wrapped in moisture-proof bags. Inside were photocopies of dozens of original files, minutes of letter retrievals, lists of mementos removed, and specific instructions for thorough disposal. But the most important item was a small black USB drive. Everyone. Anne's recent actions are extremely thoughtless, Camilla said, her voice high and resolute. Reviving Diana's image only further divides our family. We need unity, and to look toward the future, not live forever in the shadow of the past. And granting the tiara to concerned about the stability of the monarchy. Camilla continued, her voice growing stronger. Anne is turning Charlotte into a tool for her personal ambitions. This is unfair to the child, and unfair to the entire family. Every word from Camilla was carefully calculated, showing concern for unity, while implicitly warning assured. She believed all traces had been erased. Nothing could lead back to her. Regaining her calm appearance, Camilla began a public counterattack. During an internal royal family meeting, a few days later, she did not hesitate to criticize Anne in front of Charlotte without going through the current Queen. Me is an overstep of authority that I cannot accept. King Charles listened with a weary expression. William frowned, but remained silent. Kate tried to stay composed, while some other members nodded in agreement with Camilla. Than ever, if she did nothing now, Diana's legacy would be buried in darkness forever. She had no way back. After the shocking ceremony, the atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace became that words alone were not enough. There had to be concrete, powerful, and public action to change the situation. That was exactly why Anne decided to organize the tiara presentation ceremony for Charlotte. Of one individual, but a years-long systematic conspiracy to diminish Diana's image and influence within the royal family. From that day forward, Anne began to act more decisively. She quietly gathered more information, contacted additional former witnesses, and made long-term plans. She understood she wanted to present the little girl, Diana's granddaughter, to the public as a living symbol of the values Diana had once represented: compassion, courage, and closeness to the people. Anne knew this decision would cause turmoil, but after hearing Robert's words, she was more convinced. Tiara does not belong to anyone in this young generation. The entire hall seemed to freeze. Camilla had lost control in front of hundreds of people. Her hand trembled as she pointed directly at Anne, her voice rising with fury. "Diana is gone. We need to look towards the future, not dig up and revive the painful past." Anne stood motionless, completely unfazed. She simply looked at Camilla with cold, resolute eyes. The corner of her mouth lifted slightly in a faint smile, not with emotion, but with an uncontrollable explosion of rage. Her voice, shrill and cutting through the solemn atmosphere like a sharp knife, rang out. "This is completely unacceptable. Anne, you have no right to decide this on your own. I demand it be canceled immediately." That tear that almost no one noticed. It was the smile of someone who had long been waiting for this reaction. William, standing not far away, felt his heart pounding in his chest. He immediately realized this was no ordinary honors ceremony. Aunt Anne was doing something far greater. Provided additional detailed testimony, clearly identifying who had carried out the orders and how the chain of command had worked. The pieces from other witnesses Anne had of choosing the right moment to bring everything into the light. The confrontation had reached its decisive stage. And so the ceremony took place. Camilla protested fiercely, and Princess Anne knew she could no longer remain silent. 3 weeks after that fateful ceremony, tightly. The rain was still pouring, but her heart had never felt brighter. With this concrete evidence, Anne knew she had secured victory. Now it was only a matter met earlier began fitting together perfectly, forming a clear picture of a years-long campaign to erase Diana's image. When she left Edward's house, Anne clutched the bundle of documents, brought light to the darkest places. Yet after her death, it seemed someone wanted to completely extinguish that flame. "I don't yet have concrete evidence to name anyone specifically," Anne continued, lowering her voice. "But I can feel it. This was not rather than the symbol of compassion and courage that inspired millions." Anne stopped by the window, looking out at the dark garden. She recalled the image of Diana, her sister-in-law, with whom she had a complex but always respectful relationship. Diana had dared to speak out about landmines, AIDS, and the world's poorest children. She had not the action of one person. This was a system maintained for many years, and I will not allow it to continue. Prince William appeared at the door shortly after.